Fran Brown this, Fran Brown that.
If you want me to take a lie detector, Brian, I'll take it.
Portal watch this, portal watch that.
The dog Marmaduke. People say I like that dog.
What are you talking about playing walk-on? Who do you think walked onto the team?
Anybody that thinks this is going to come back is either naive or plain stupid.
All across CNY.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
It's the 315.
Hardy faking, feeds the crease. Jameson got it on the game!
He scores! Woo! Here's Brian Higgins.
Oh, what is up? Wednesday. Day check? Wednesday? I feel reasonably confident today is Wednesday. Welcome in. Gibbs, Utica, Rome. What's up, Rome? How are we on this fine? I got the mic very high. I'm sitting up oddly straight right now. Like, what is going on? I'm very high up. That was no good. Should we what? Wednesday. Goose, Utica, Rome. There we go. That's better. Welcome in here. Man, bowl season, portal season. It is a weird and wild time right now in college sports, college football. We'll get into all of that throughout the show today. We got our Holiday Bowl preview show coming up tomorrow. Going to play you just a little teaser, a little snippet of our conversation with the Washington State color analyst, former QB there, Alex Brink, on the general pandemonium in the Palouse right now. Ooh, that sounds good. Get into what's going on out there and how Syracuse's bowl opponent has changed faces like 67 times here in the last week and a half. Full interviews today and live guests coming up. We'll be visited by Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, which, for one, that's an elite name for a paper. Like, who names a paper why is the word avalanche in there? They're not avalanches in Lubbock. It is a flatland. Anyway, you might also ask, why the heck are you talking to somebody in Lubbock? And to that, I might tell you that Texas Tech, getting into this settlement, college football, $20 million, players, how's it going to be distributed, all this stuff coming up here in the future. Well, Texas Tech is one of the few schools that is actually spelled out to some extent of how they're going to do that. Don wrote about that the other day, so we're going to have Don on to talk about that. So that is intriguing for sure. Coming up, how the Orange were going to split up that 20 million down the line. As far as hour one, Isaac Shade, our friend from the Locked On College Basketball podcast, is going to join us coming up in, let's call it half an hour. And we're going to just talk the ACC stinks. That will be our topic of conversation. Here's a stat I just saw. Just saw it. The SEC this year in basketball is 30-4 versus the ACC. 30-4. That's not like some statistical oopsie. That is a slaughtering. That is no bueno. And usually we talk about that in relation to Syracuse and the net ranking and all that. I don't know if we're going to be hemming and hawing about that in regards to the Orange this year. But a lot of the league's going to get caught up in this. It's not a good year right now for the ACC. So our guy Isaac Shade will join us to talk about that. And your calls as well throughout at 315-437-7644. That is a 4 at ESPN. And then 2 more 4s will get you through on this Wednesday. With that all stated, let's get things going today.
We start with the Burdick BMW opening drive.
No, we do. We start with the Burdick BMW opening drive here today, and we're going to get into the hoops. We're going to get into the this $20 million, the new house settlement and all that coming up. But where do we start this time of year? Where do we start but here?
The portal is open.
Prepare ship for ludicrous speed.
Players on the move.
Scotty, beam us up fast.
Where are they going?
To infinity and beyond.
It's another edition of Portal Watch.
Ludicrous speed. Go!
Oh, my goodness. What isn't happening in Portal Watch right now? What isn't happening in Portal Watch right now? Here, day 10. Is Washington State in the portal? One asks. their head coach, Jake Dickert, taking the Wake Forest job earlier today, throwing a lot of things up in the air in regards to the Holiday Bowl. Though we've heard from the director of the Holiday Bowl, Mark Neville, who will be on our bowl preview show tomorrow, saying all full steam ahead. We've heard from Washington State saying the same thing. But man, they're up to 22 players in the portal, including their starting quarterback. New today, one of their starting linebackers, Tariq Al-Ukda. I really should have looked that up before I launched into that one. Ooh, we got caught midway through on that one. But their head coach, Jake Dickert, that was not a name on my radar when it came to Wake Forest and the at least surprise to us resignation of Dave Clawson due to just the general nonsense of the sporting world right now. So things have changed, and you were wondering if that would then cause another influx into the portal from Washington State. They already have 22 out the door, and potentially. I don't want to say this. It's not going to put the bowl game in jeopardy because this is too big of a bowl to not happen, right? This is a primetime television show on a network. This is Fox on a Friday night. Like, there's more riding on it. Like, they'd find somebody. Like, hey, Oregon State, you're 5-7. Come on down and play. But it sounds like Washington State's going to stay the course and come play the game. I don't know who's still going to be on the team. The spread keeps going up and up and up and up. So that is going on in the portal. Earlier today, in regards to Syracuse in the portal, another quarterback whose name we've been keeping an eye on by the name of Caden Salter, the Liberty quarterback that guided the Flames to an undefeated regular season a year ago in 2023, who visited Syracuse last weekend, who was at the Georgetown basketball game, and then made his way out to Boulder, Colorado, he didn't leave Boulder, Colorado. He has announced that he is going to be playing for Coach Prime next year and going to be the one-year successor to Shedeur Sanders. So there is that in the quarterback world of the portal. And now this just happened. Reporting just now on Syracuse.com. Sources. LSU quarterback Ricky Collins Jr., the backup this year to Garrett Nussmeier, intends to transfer to Syracuse. A source with knowledge of the situation told Syracuse.com on Wednesday. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that. I've not seen anything from Ricky Collins Jr. himself, but the Orange missed out on Salter earlier today. We know Collins visited last week. Others, Syracuse is clearly keeping at least one eye on. Anthony Colandrea, who I'm not that high on, out of Virginia, who's going to be visiting Ole Miss sometime later this week. They got one eye on him. Bo Prabula, whose name shouldn't be hard to say, but oddly is Bo Prabula. Why is that so hard to say? Is it all the B's? He's visiting Wazzu upcoming. There's another name Syracuse had an eye on, but it's possible Ricky Collins could be the one next in with a significant difference from Salter and even Colandrea and certainly from Kyle McCord this year that he does not have the experience starting. He does have, he's at an SEC school. He'd be quite aware of the idea of what Tennessee is coming up in the season opener next year, but he's not a guy that has significant actual playing college experience. So while he'd be a guy coming in out of the portal, is he a guy that, is auto snagging the starting job? Like Kyle McCord was the starting quarterback. There was no doubt about that. Not a doubt about that he was the starting quarterback coming in. Not a doubt. Not a doubt in the world about that. This year, I'd say if this Collins guy's coming in, now, he was a former 4-star quarterback. He's certainly an athlete. He was an Elite 11 guy, the whole thing. But I'd say would he probably be the starting quarterback? Sure, he'd probably be the starting quarterback. But I wouldn't say that's one where you're like, yeah, there's not a competition to the whole thing. So something we'll keep an eye on. As reported by Syracuse.com, yet to see that out there from anywhere else. So including friend of the show, one Mike McAllister. So that is something that we will keep an eye on and keep monitored as we go on throughout our afternoon together, and perhaps longer than that, because as you know, all eyes here are always on the transfer portal. So this Collins guy, super talented if he shows up. Jakari Williams is here and has been here for a year. Luke Carney is coming in. I believe he's expected to join the team for the spring semester and spring practice. The talented Texan. That's fun to say. Talented Texan. So you've got options here. It feels like in the absence of getting a guy like Salter, who's going to Colorado and will likely be the one-year bridge to, one of the top recruits in the country that Colorado's got coming in here this offseason, that, all right, in the absence of the obvious, which was Kyle McCord last year, bring in as much talent as you can, and then, you can sort it out. But this one doesn't quite feel like, if this is to be the case, like it is as absolute a no-brainer as far as who's going to be starting and whose team it is, as McCord was last year. As Fran Brown always says, the number 2 guy on his team is not the OC, it's not the DC, it's not whomever, it's the quarterback. And from the second Kyle McCord said he was coming here last year, he was the number 2 guy on the team. Like, that was spoken aloud by Fran Brown. This was never, and nor should it have been, clearly, it was never a battle for the quarterback job. It was never anything like that. Just to look a little bit here in the Collins, he was the backup. He's a redshirt freshman this year. He was the backup to Garrett Nussmeier, who behind Kyle McCord and Cam Ward was one of the leading passers in the country this year in yardage. At one point, he was leading the country in yardage this year. I'll say this. If Ricky Collins comes to Syracuse, be envious of this Kyle McCord and everybody else in the country. Ricky Collins, LSU backup quarterback, in his career, has never, not once, thrown an incomplete pass. He is all-time 7 for 7. So, not exactly the wealth of experience as Kyle McCord had. Kyle McCord's had more drives where he went 7 for 7 than Ricky Collins is throwing passes in his career. So be prepared for a whole different world if it's Collins coming here. Be it Jakari Williams, be it a Luke Carney, be it somebody else from the portal, like the odds of getting anyone in the experience realm of Kyle McCord coming in like as ready to go day one as Kyle was last season, not exactly high. But we'll keep an eye out there, see if there's any confirmation to those reports as we go on. News from yesterday in the portal that came in after we went off the air last night. Now former Rutgers wideout Chris Long, who, not so incidentally, was recruited to Rutgers by, what was his name? Yes, Fran Brown, has transferred to Syracuse and committed officially last night. His stats, he's a former 4-star guy at a high school. His college stats, underwhelming. He's not even had so much as a 20-catch or 200-yard season in his college career. That said, look what this staff got out of Jackson Meeks this year. Who was at Georgia. You don't end up as a wideout at Georgia if you don't have the recruiting bona fides. But he basically never got to play wide receiver when he was at Georgia. Comes here, and my goodness, he's fantastic. Has a fantastic nearly 1,000-yard season. And a chance to shoot for that in the bowl game coming up. So will Long be that? No guarantees, but there is immediate precedent of a guy that didn't quite get it done one way or another at one place coming here and being able to show out immediately. The second incoming recruit now in the portal season for Fran Brown, joining yesterday's Alabama and Texas A&M former one-game played offensive lineman in Naquil Bertrand. And just for those that care or don't, remember Leon Lowry? Anyone remember Leon? Leon Lowry? Yeah. It's always easier to forget the names of the past when everything's gone well in the future. Well, he portaled after his 1 year at Wisconsin. He'll be going to Illinois next year, so he's taken a bounce around here to check things out and see what's going on out there in the Big Ten. A little portal watch for you, man. Thought we were going to be talking Washington State. We'll get more into that later on in the show here today. Talking a little Washington State here and what's going on there. I thought, and it sounds like everyone's saying the right thing. I thought this morning when the news came out that Jake Dickert, Washington State head coach, was taking the Wake Forest job, which is like, what? Those two schools are not nearby. And that At that point, 21 Washington State players had already entered the transfer portal. My first thought was, well, there goes another 20. There's not a chance in hell they're going to have enough players to field a team for the bowl. But they immediately named an interim and said all the right things. The bowl game is 9 days from today in San Diego. It would be tricky to get another team, but you can always find somebody to say yes for the paycheck for something like that. So it will be interesting to see if anything changes. We will have the director of the Holiday Bowl, Mark Neville, on our bowl preview show tomorrow. That begins 2 o'clock exclusively on Q Sports Talk and QSportsTalk.com. So we'll get his thoughts on all this. Being a bowl director, man, that used to be just going around, hey, you want to come to our bowl game? We got cool stuff. Now it's like, hey, you want to come to our bowl game? Is your quarterback going to play? Is your head coach still going to be here? Is anybody going to care? Who's going to be on your roster? What's going on? Did we pick the right team? Did we pick the wrong team? Is this a terrible idea? Will anybody care about our game? We'll try to ask him a little bit slower to Neville tomorrow when he's on the show, but looking forward to that. Kyle McCord, some guy named Kyle McCord, the quarterback who's playing in the Gosh Darn game. He'll be on the show with us tomorrow as well. With that, we wrap up our Burdick BMW opening drive. Time now to get a check of the old markets today, and for that, we bring in our guy Bill from Lee Baldwin. All right, Bill, how'd this midweek Wednesday go for you?
Not good. We opened lower and drifted lower and then fell sharply lower in the last 2 hours after the Fed did exactly what we thought they would do. They cut rates by a quarter of a point, but then said don't expect many rate cuts next year. So we accelerated our losses, falling 1,123 points in the Dow, which is the second 1,000-point down day for the year. Kind of feels like a capitulation day. This is the Dow's 10th straight down day, so we're due for a couple up days. And there were some diamonds today. We're going to go with Boeing, which has had an awful year, but it's starting to perk up of late, and they restarted production in Seattle, and they're expanding their plant in Charleston, South Carolina. People are starting to warm up to the stock for 2025, so we're hoping brighter skies for Boeing next year. And on the downside, we had General Mills down 3% on earnings, the maker of Cheerios. They're just being a little cautious, saying that consumers are very price conscious right now, though they're doing well in their pet food brand. Blue Buffalo brand is doing well for them. So overall, an ugly day, but we're due for some nice bounce back here.
All right, we'll see if that gets going tomorrow. Bill, thank you as always. There he is, Bill from Lee Baldwin, with all of the diamonds and none of the dogs. All of the diamonds and none of the dogs. With that, we'll take a break. Phone line's open for a bit when we come back. 315-437-7644. Talk a little college hoops with our guy Isaac Shade coming up at 4:30. All that as we roll along here on this Thursday in the Q's in Utica, in Rome, and on Q Sports Talk here on ESPN Radio. What is up, chat? Let's put our Christmas music bumps in. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, it's still, Brent has reported that. I've not seen it from anywhere else yet, which is intriguing. What's up, Satchel Say? All right. I'd say that is generally how that stuff goes. Any name is good. Like I'd say, it depends. Like very often, I'd say coaches are starting to be like way more open, I think, with recruits on that. Like, hey, we like you. We've offered this guy. Like, if he says no, like, your offer becomes committable, like, immediately. Now, who knows if that's what happened, but that's like, I feel that's like a thing now. Will they offer any other? That's a good question, Hudson Cuse. Will they offer any other quarterbacks? I don't know, because it's not like the thing here with Collins. It's not like you've added talent. You have not added experience. So, but you look at who's available in the portal. Like, there's no Cam Ward. I don't think there's anyone that's really equivalent to McCord last year in the portal. But like, hey, LSU's had plenty of talented quarterbacks. The guy could be good. It's just I don't know if the the obvious plug and play option is as available this year as maybe as it was last year. What's up, YouTube? The Quinn Ewers rumors are wild. Is he going in the second round of the draft? Is he going undrafted? Is he getting $58 million to be Oregon's quarterback? It's possible, D. Grant. I'd say, like, realistically, if you're Collins, that's just not what you're getting in the market for. Like, LSU is not going to have generally untalented quarterbacks on their roster. That's for darn sure. It's just he's barely played at all, so who the heck knows? He's played in 4 games ever. But never thrown an incomplete pass. Impossible to know. Clearly a talent.
It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
All right, rolling along here on this fine Wednesday. Make sure you have a permit for that open fire. Throw at 5-437-7644 for ESPN 44. Let's hit the phones. Scooter's hanging on. Hey, Scoot, what's going on?
Well, I'll tell you, another successful Scooter Bowl. You didn't think the name of Scooter is going to be a 6-3 game, did you?
That would be an insult to your legacy as a gambling man.
Yeah, actually, I got a wager with somebody. Which bowl's going to have more points, the Scooter Bowl or the Snoop Dogg Bowl? So I'm hoping Iowa's playing in the Snoop Dogg Bowl. So it'd be a done deal. We won't have to worry about that. But tell Paulie his farm was safe. The 58 was the total. The scary part was, I mentioned on Monday, I thought Memphis, is going to come in hungry, and line was 2. It goes up to 5. So I don't know. There was a push for most people. I got it kind of early thinking that it would stay about that, but it was an interesting game. I just wondered, Brian, is there a rule says that you can't play more than one bowl?
That's a good question, Scooter.
I mean, Memphis would show up for $6.5 million. It is a payout, right? $6.5 million.
Yeah. They'd come cash that check, I'm sure, if offered. Is there a rule? There's, I don't know. Are there rules for anything anymore, Scooter? Is the real question. Obviously, like it never used to be even a thought here, but we live in different times.
Well, the thing is, I don't remember the pandemic era, and I think it was Val Boise State, but there was 2 bowls almost 2 days with both teams that dropped out because theoretically of the pandemic because people got sick, but they were actually on site ready to play. So the 2 teams that dropped out, they took the other 2 teams that were going to play these other teams and put them in one of the 2 bowls that was going to get canceled.
Yeah. I think the main difference, I mean, obviously you're talking about the potentials if Washington State would have to drop out. I think if I'm remembering right what happened in that one, Scooter, those were both like smaller level ESPN bowls, so it's a lot easier to do that. I think the fact that this game is prime time on Fox, so it kind of, like, does it have to be on the air? No, that Fox isn't going to crumble as a network, but it's a primetime network television event. Like, they're going, like, I think Washington State will end up playing it, but there will be a team that plays Syracuse in that game next Friday night.
Well, it's too bad because, Marshall dropped out. So I'm sure that if this was the situation, Army obviously would have been a nice little, you said from Fox standpoint, because Army obviously is national, and it'd be interesting. You had two teams from New York State that were supposed to play each other, but they had to drop out because of that. But I go back to the Florida State, and I understand that was more of a protest, but that was the Orange Bowl,
right?
All right. I mean, to show up, I don't even know who even played in that game. I gave up. It wasn't fun. All right. And I just hope this isn't a Holy Cross Syracuse type of game where all these players are second and third strings that haven't played all year. I'm surprised. I guess the offensive coordinator's gone and the defensive coordinator's gone too. So it's not just the head coach, because sometimes they try to get the offensive coordinator if he's leaving or one of the coaches to at least stick around the coach. So at least there is some continuity. I mean, I don't know.
My understanding is their defense stunk this year, so they fired the defensive coordinator.
They fired a guy,
the offensive coordinator got the OC job at Oklahoma. Then this Dickert move happened today, and they had somebody else. Their defensive tackles coach was also their associate head coach, so he was the one that got bumped up to the interim job for it. I think their quarterback coach or whatever it is going to be calling the plays. So it is some semblance of continuity, but they're running out of guys real quick.
Well, I laughed because you mentioned Oregon State. I think their quarterback's transferring now. I don't know if it's the starting quarterback or one of them, but I knew one of them was transferring because I forgot he was looking at somewhere else. And so that'll be the interesting part. They go get somebody else, and they don't have a quarterback either. But you're right. This has got – I don't know if the NIL – you're going to have to maybe word it if you're not going to – I'm going to pay you – to the end, okay? And the end is after the bowl. We have a bowl, and we're going to see this, I think, in the NCAA tournament sooner or later. The same scenario. Players that don't want to play. I'm surprised the conference tournaments people just stop playing because you play 3-4 games in a row. That's when you're going to get hurt.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for that part to start doing it. Where hey, listen, I've already played 2 games. I'm not going to play the third game.
Yeah, I say my bowl game theory, Scooter, is that the bowl game should be offering NIL to the stars. Get them involved in promoting the game, and then you can at least have some buy-in, and they're going to play in the game. But it's a crazy world right now.
Well, I think Memphis, like I said, Memphis was a little upset because they had the same record as Tulane, and one time they were up there, and I thought they had some improvement on West Virginia. But I'm telling you right now, their quarterback played, and he's trying to impress the pros. He thinks he's got a shot. So I think Memphis would have shown up if you give him 6.5. But can they do that? Can teams have already played in bowls, and this thing happens because they're already playing. They already played, and I assume they're still together. And we'll see. But it's bowls I used to love. Man, I tell you, I took time off from work and stuff like that before I retired, and this was always fun, and it was always like conferences, Southeast Conference against the Big Ten, and they took pride in the ACC. Well, that's kind of gone out the window, and so it's just a shame that this is going to happen, but it's going to get worse until something comes up, and I don't know if you can start the season in August because we're going to have troubles, I think, in this 12-team playoff pretty soon too. It
never gets less, Scooter, and thanks as always for the call. Yep. But it's one of these things where, like, hey, just when you think you've got it figured out, there's 28 new problems around the corner. All right, let's get another call in before the break. It's John in Liverpool. Hey, John, what's going on?
Yeah, Brian, some sports, college football sports information came out today that actually stunned me, and it's very difficult to be stunned anymore with anything to do with sports.
Mm-hmm.
But did you see that starting next year in 2025, you're still going to have 12 teams in this playoff for at least next year, and then it'll probably go up to 14 or 16. But starting next year, the winner of the Ivy League Conference is going to get an automatic berth into the playoffs? You got to be kidding me.
They're getting John. They are getting the automatic berth into a playoff. They're getting an automatic berth into the FCS playoffs, the 1AA playoffs. Not the playoffs. The Ivy League has always shunned the idea of postseason, so they're just joining the 1AA FCS playoffs next year for the first time ever. So it will not. Yeah, it will not be Harvard versus Alabama. That I don't think would go very well.
Okay, got it. Thanks, Brian.
All right, you're welcome, John. So I thought, yes, if they were in the playoffs, that would be some wild stuff. It is Harvard versus Yale. Throwback to the good old days. Oh God, it's 102-0. No, but they'll be in the FCS playoffs next year, so good for them. All right, let's hit a break. We'll talk a little college hoops with our guy Isaac Shade from the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. We'll do that next year on Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. I didn't know where that was going at the beginning. Why is my wrist itchy? All right, Matt and Manlius tells me to take the rest of the afternoon off. See you guys. Let's see. Anything else out there on this Collins situation? Oh, we got Lipton's, Matt. We got a bucket of Lipton's. All the ones in the room are in this bucket right now. We're just living that Lipton life. Lipton hard iced tea. Refreshing. Probably. I haven't actually had one yet. I took a case home, though, yesterday, so we will do the research and get back to you. Gomez had one this morning, and he enjoyed it. That is the early, that's the early reports. Yeah, it's closer to 7, Matt. He does his 7 a.m. shots, and they are positioning themselves as the chaser to his shots. But, yeah, it's much better. Gomez was just drinking at 7, not 5. 5 would be ridiculous. He is supporting our fine sponsors at Labatt USA. He has been doing that, Hudson Hughes. I would still be shocked if that occurred. Well, he's had 2 years of development. Any name is good, so hopefully he's benefited. Hey, Gomez is a Hall of Famer. He will... All right. Oh yeah, Jordan. I think that's the way. I'm seeing the vertical edit. I think that's it. I have heard they've explored it, Matt, but I don't think anybody is very optimistic in it. And even if it came through, there's no guarantee that McCord would want to do that. I say some people I feel are putting way more stock in the rumor than there probably should be. Like, realistically, if the NCAA were to overturn it, like, their only rationale for overturning it is that Ryan Day is a dumbass. Like, it would be a hell of a precedent. Well, your former head coach was a bit of a dumbass. So here's another year. You're welcome. He did say that, Hudson Hughes. It was kind of electric. My personal thought is that McCord has mentally moved on to the idea of going to the league. That is the question, T-Takes.
Cross CNY. It's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Rolling along here on this Wednesday. Christmas is next Wednesday. That's why you get it. We're playing it's the Christmas music. You understand what we're doing here. All right, we'll get back to eyes on the transfer portal as soon as possible. We might talk about the basketball version of it with our next guest. You never know. It is ever present and everywhere as we bring in our guy, Isaac Shade from the Locked On College Basketball podcast. Isaac, thanks as always for hopping on. The ACC stinks, huh? What are we watching right now? It's not. Nothing's good. It's all bad. Nothing's good.
Good night, Brian. It's been real.
Canceled the season. Let's go home.
Dude, it is wild and wacky. Absolutely. Especially when you compare that to what our other southern neighbors, which I guess you can't even really talk about the South anymore with the SEC or the ACC because we're all over the place. But man, the SEC comparatively is just eating our lunch right now.
Yeah, the stat I saw today, Isaac, is that this year, SEC versus ACC in college basketball, and that's all the teams, the good ones, the bad ones, and whatever. The SEC is 30-4 head-to-head against the ACC. Like, I've seen out-of-whack numbers before. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, right, between two actual, in theory, comparable conferences.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely bonkers stat. Obviously, a lot of that comes out of the ACC-SEC challenge where the SEC won 14-2, and then the ACC has just two other wins. And you look at, I mean, it just feels like a nightly thing. Last night, the SEC won two more games over the ACC with Florida beating North Carolina in the Jumpman Invitational, and then South Carolina beating Clemson at home in overtime. Oh, by the way, that was one of the ACC's two ranked teams. And so it's just like, man, the SEC is just dominant over the ACC right now. And Brian, we hate to talk the dollars and cents, but that's the bottom line. Is we're really starting to see the inequity financially maybe starting to show up in the on-court product.
Yeah, is this the cycling, like kind of the reverse cycling, right, of NIL, right? That these other schools have all this other income, so they can essentially put all their donor money toward NIL. Is that what you think we're seeing right now? Is it that big of a talent disparity between the SEC and the ACC right now?
I mean, I truly think it is. And the way you said it is perfect there, Brian, because it's not about like all this money coming in from the media deals isn't just going to NIL. I think that's what a lot of people might be confused about. But with that money able to go to support staff or to other things, and then that frees up the donor money is now more clear to say that can go to scholarships or other NIL opportunities. And that's where the inequity really starts to show up. And you look at it in terms, like, let's go back to the ACC-SEC challenge. I remember watching Alabama's support staff, and they've got one person sitting there just watching Hubert Davis call plays into the Tar Heels.
Wow.
And deciphering what that is and then signaling it to Nate Oates so he can tell the players. I mean, it's like that kind of level. Does that win you a basketball game? No. Is it a massive competitive advantage? Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not. We don't have to go back that many years, Isaac, that essentially every major basketball staff was comparable in some way. You had a head coach, you had 3 assistants, you had a directors of ops that handled logistics and handing the coach the clipboard. You had a trainer and you had a strength guy, and you had some student managers and maybe a GA, and that was it. And every team had the same volume. It's turned into football, right? You look at Alabama, Alabama football, they got 87 analysts, and like half of them used to coach in the NFL. Like when that's spilling down to basketball too, you can start seeing the manpower advantage.
Yeah, you really can, and it plays out with, like, even the bottom-tier SEC teams, and we've seen this now both in football and now as we turn to basketball, the bottom-tier SEC teams, like, I don't want to dump on them, but like Vandy, which this actually isn't dumping on them. I'm going to praise them. The Vandys of the world are competing with mid- to upper-tier ACC teams, and it's that kind of thing where it's like, man, if the ACC isn't able to do it there, then what are we looking at?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That used to be why you wouldn't see numbers like this get out of whack, because, all right, you get your wins against somebody, even if that league's better than this year, it's not going to be crazy. And now when you're losing to in theory, the dregs of the other league, it's not ideal. As we got our guy Isaac Shade of the Locked On College Basketball podcast. So I think what we've seen, this feels different to me than maybe the last few years. Because the last few years we've seen, all right, the ACC has struggled here in the non-conference, not to this extent, but they haven't won enough, but they had won certainly more of their fair share, and then there was just kind of a weird narrative which got stuck to them for the whole year. And then by the end of the year, they had teams that were very representative, and they just didn't get enough in the tournament. This feels different, right? Like they're still going to get shunted out of the tournament here because they're not going to have the numbers. This year, though, it feels like it'll probably be right? Like I don't know if these teams will deserve it.
I think that is spot on, Brian. Like usually, I think the ACC has received a very unfair narrative. This year, though, it's accurate, and that's unfortunate, but it's part of the talent disparity. It's part, it's not like all of a sudden, yes, there's been coaching turnover, but you can't just look at it and say, well, there's new coaches, so the ACC's down. It's just like the talent is not there at the same level as it is in the SEC, in the Big Ten, obviously in the Big 12, which has been the top conference in basketball the past several years. Obviously, that's going to be SEC far and away this year, but and we'll see what happens when the tournament comes, because that's been the thing, is that although the ACC has had fewer teams, the ACC has had elite teams, and so you'll still see 3 teams make the Elite Eight and half of the Final Four or something like that, and that's where the ACC has still been able to trumpet, like, yes, things are great. Right now, Duke is the only team playing at that level. You've got Clemson that's been strong. North Carolina has underwhelmed. Pitt is kind of in that mid-range. Like SMU is kind of up there as a team that's like hanging around, kind of not as strong as they are in football, but like helping actually. And so it's just like, is the ACC going to be able to produce that level of postseason capability? Right now, beyond Duke, it doesn't appear so.
Is anyone in the league, I mean, besides Duke, and you kind of answered it, like, they've got the talent. Obviously, Cooper Flagg is a stud. Like, does anyone have a chance to, like, make a run? I mean, obviously, anyone can make a run, but do you see anybody's roster with the talent that you'd be like, all right, at some point, this is going to get itself together, and that they'll be one of the better teams in the country?
That's a great question. And yes, to your point, Duke is that, although we have to wonder, will their youth show up in playoff, in postseason time? I think they're going to really, really need those transfer pieces they brought in that are upperclassmen, like Mason Gillis from Purdue. Obviously, Syracuse fans are very familiar with one gentleman who plays for Duke now. I'm just not even going to name him. So
we're quite aware of Malik's status down there. We've seen him play basketball before and acquire a steal or two in his time.
So I didn't want any of those shots to the heart for the Orange fans, but I think Wake Forest has severely underwhelmed. They were talked about as a top 3 ACC team. There is enough talent there, chief of which is Hunter Salas, who was a guy that could have stayed in the draft, decided to come back. I think, we all know how important guard is in postseason, so that could be a big deal. North Carolina has a lot of talent, but they are struggling from the same problem Duke had last year, where there was just no real front court presence, right? Like, that is an issue for North Carolina. I think Clemson could be legit. They get Ian Shefflin back. I like to call him the chef, cooking it up down there in Clemson. And they've got Chase Hunter, who's a really strong guard. So a strong guard, a strong big. There's possibility there. Pitt has been looking good. They just don't have the talent that they did last year with Bub Carrington, that dynamic freshman. And outside of that, I mean, yes, as you said, anybody could go on a run. We saw that last year with NC State, right? But there's nobody glaring right now that jumps out outside of maybe those couple teams.
All right, as we got Isaac Shade, Locked On College Basketball podcast here. We're doing our best around here, Isaac, to not leap off the ledge in regards to Syracuse basketball right now, which is sitting at 5-5, and J.J. Starling still remains out. We haven't heard a date. We're presuming mid-January is best case. Given the state of the ACC, like if and when they get JJ back, can the Orange, like at that point, I'm not saying make the tournament or anything, at that point, can they at least be competitive in this group because of the lack of whatever that's going on right now in the league?
I truly believe so. That's the interesting thing about the ACC is that I was just looking at FanDuel's lines earlier in the day. Duke right now is like a minus two something to win the league. Clemson has actually moved into second in the odds at like plus 300 something. So Duke is far and away the odds-on favorite. But given the unbalanced schedules that we have, like the Big East is the only power conference that still does a true home and home. But with that inequity, it opens it up for a lot of people. And, you know, Brian, there's always that thing of you lose a star player. Like Auburn's Janai Broome got hurt last night. I think long-term, he's going to get back, and it's going to be a benefit for Bruce Pearl's team to be able to get experience for other guys to have to step up in the interim. Same is true. I say that because I think the same is true for Syracuse. As long as JJ can get back and be fully healthy, the development that other guys will have in his absence, I think is a long-term positive. It's just that in the meantime, you can't take on too much water if you're the Orange, right? Like, you got Maryland coming up Saturday on the neutral site. Like, that is a very difficult game. And then hopefully there's a get-right game against Bucknell. When is that? Like, on the 28th, I think, just leading into New Year's there, leading up to ACC play. And so just, like, got to go 1-1, stay at 500 in non-con. And then I think, to your good point, Brian, anything could happen in ACC play. I mean, it's crazy right now. I was just looking earlier today at like KenPom numbers and net numbers. The ACC only has 5 teams in the top 60 of the net.
Wow.
9 of, like half the league is outside the top 100, literally 9. The SEC, by comparison, all 16 teams are top 84. 15 of them are top 60. Right? Like, it's crazy what we're looking at. And so to that point, you got to hold serve at home. That's key. And then if you go, you know what, like 6-4, 7-3 on the road, you're in good shape.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope for Syracuse. The hope has been far and few between here in the last last few days. So we're grasping at something here as we got Isaac Shade.
And let me say, part of it here is a good thing. Also, Brian, that unbalanced schedule, as you probably well know, Syracuse only plays Duke once,
right?
And it's at home. Like, so when you get that schedule advantage, you got to take advantage.
Yeah, and it's not till February, I don't believe. So hopefully the Orange will be a whole by that point. Yeah. So Isaac, looking back here, all right, that's enough depressing things about the ACC for now. Obviously, the SEC's been great. You know, the Big 12 still has some excellent teams going on. What team out there has impressed you the most so far?
I just read them a little bit ago. It was Auburn, and like, I'm really, really hoping Janai Broome is okay. He is my front runner for National Player of the Year right now. He does it on both ends of the court. He's so critically important for Auburn, but they are long. They've got athletic guards. They've got other guys that, like, it's not just about Broome, right? They're balanced. They can step up and do it. The question, you know, there's always that thing with a dominant power conference like the SEC. Can you escape the conference without just being bloodied and beaten up along the way? Because, I mean, it's going to be insane. The SEC has 3 of the top 4 teams in the nation right now, 8 of the top 17 in the AP. It's just wild. I like Auburn. I really do like Gonzaga. I know they've taken a couple losses lately, but I think they're a team that's going to go away now and people are going to forget because they're going to go into West Coast Conference play. But Gonzaga, I truly do believe in. Just a couple of weird losses along the way. Another team that I really, really do like is Iowa State. The difference is under TJ Otzelberger, they've usually been a really strong defensive team, and they definitely still are. Like their defense is 8th at KenPom defensive efficiency right now. But the difference this year for Iowa State is their offensive efficiency. They're 4th in the nation in that regard. And so, legitimately, Iowa State is a contender to win not just the Big 12, but to make some noise on the national scene.
All right, all good teams to keep an eye out for. It's always great to chat. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and hopefully the next time we talk, it'll be like less miserable. We'll get to talk about some wins or something from the league or whatnot. We'll figure it out.
Let's go ACC.
Yeah, just win a game or two. Yeah, let's do it. All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you, brother. Happy holidays.
You as well. There's our guy, Isaac Shade from the Check Him Out, of course, as always, on the Locked On College Basketball podcast. He also does Locked On North Carolina. They're struggling 6-5. 6-5, despite having the defending ACC Player of the Year, R.J. Davis, back in the fold. All right, let's hit a break on the show right now. When we come back, much more to come in the next hour. We'll get back to a little bit of football and also get into the idea of this court settlement, the House settlement, the $20 million, the revenue sharing come up. Texas Tech, their AD kind of said out loud the other day how they plan on actually shaking it up. Don Williams from the paper in Lubbock wrote about that. We'll have Don on next hour. Syracuse, private school, don't have to quite tell you everything. John Wildkike has said they'll be competitive. Texas Tech, public school, saying things out loud. Well, we kind of got some numbers that were, I thought, interesting because we hadn't really seen them anywhere before. So it'll be interesting to get the perspective from down Lubbock way on that. With that, we'll step aside for a few. Back after this, it's Q Sports Talk and ESPN Radio. Yeah, it is interesting, ain't it, San Diego Q's? Look, it's Mike. Mike has given a subtle nod at the air hockey machine. Or were you nodding at the cool, refreshing Lipton Hard Iced Tea, now in multiple flavors, in a variety pack at stores near you? How was that? Was that good advertising, Mike?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you heard
Lipton
about the fruits? There's a strawberry, a lemon. That's kind of the standard flavor. There's a peach.
It's kind of the standard flavor.
Yeah.
Is it for iced tea, though? Because technically, isn't it like iced tea first?
I suppose, but I'd say the most standard flavor of iced tea would be a lemon. When you're looking at a...
It is freezing here.
You're freezing?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
let's turn on the ice.
Now let's turn on the hockey. Yeah, I was just getting it temperate. There's also a half and half, an Arnie, if you will.
Oh.
Hang it.
Oh, yeah. So I get to go first.
Yeah, Mike won the first lots of games. I have rallied and won the last two. So that's where we're at on that.
It is 3-2 count so far. I got out to a hot lead.
Yeah, you did. I thought I might never win. It was bad early.
Oh, that was close. I gotta move this mic. I can't see. Yeah. Oh, that was a ringer.
Oh, that's a soft goal. That's a soft
one.
That was very soft.
That had a speed of about a half a mile an hour.
That was soft. I mean, I love an Arnie, Kev, so that would probably be my go-to first one to try. Okay, not for me. I lost. I'm a sore loser. Yeah, but I've got I got a 12er of the variety pack to take home and test it out. They were just purchased by Labatt USA. That's all of our new exciting Lipton gear because we love Lipton and Labatt. Yeah, I mean, it's a beer. It's a 5% beverage.
Here's Brian Higgins.
8 days till Boxing Day in Canada. You can adjust your math off everything else on that. A week until both Christmas and Hanukkah, starting on the same day this year. That is, I'm sure it has happened before, history being long. I don't recall it. Lights on the Lake, though. That's happened before. Get your tickets, lightsonthelake.com. Maybe see a little snow on the ground when you're heading out there as we get closer to Christmas. It's going to be getting a little chilly here come a couple days from now. So get your tickets, lightsonthelake.com, or if you're still searching for a Christmas present for somebody, you could get them, Lights on the Lake. Or if they like to have a locally brewed beverage, CNY Brewfest is coming up in the Horticulture Building at the New York State Fairgrounds at the end of January. Tickets available now at cnybrewfest.com. So check all those great things out as we get ready for the holiday season. As we get ready for hour two. Oh, this world it's topsy-turvy. The world of college sports is topsy-turvy. Just as we were complaining about, they're playing Washington State. Washington State somehow got like 8 times more interesting and 10 times less interesting all at the same time. The coach is gone. The quarterback is gone. Alex Brink, we're going to hear just a little bit, a snippet, a preview, if you will, of our conversation coming up on tomorrow's Holiday Bowl preview special on these airwaves. We'll hear from that next hour. And Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. Still don't know why they're talking about avalanches in Lubbock, Texas. He will join us. He wrote about Texas Tech's plan and how they have laid out quite specifically how they plan on doling out this $20 million rev share that's on its way from the House settlement coming up starting as soon as this summer. All that as we roll along to hour two after this. Phone lines open as well, 315-437-7644. All coming up next, Q Sports Talk, ESPN Radio.
The Sport.
Hey, look, it's Jordan. Has he come to have a refreshing cold Lipton hard iced tea?
No, but I can all but guarantee you I'll be able to give you the definitive Lipton hard iced tea flavor rankings list on Friday's bowl preview show.
Now we're previewing. Now we got a show. Well, it's a preview of the review. It's a preview of the impending review. I look forward to Jordan's Lipton Hard Iced Tea review coming up sometime on Q Sports Talk between 6 and 8 o'clock next Friday, the 27th.
Random Twitter account that I should make if I had the ambition to is podcast existing solely on titles. And just tweet out random titles of podcasts that would be terrible, but the title is good. And one of them would be the preview review. And it's just going and reviewing people's previews of things. Although I guess that wouldn't be bad for like movie teasers, but that's like a teaser, not a preview.
The preview review, it's got a good title.
Yeah, maybe we could start with your upcoming segment. The preview review.
Yeah. It's kind of like my title for my book. It's the book I'm never going to write. Yeah. Raspberry's a good one. I suppose it could be, Kev. It was not among the included in this variety pack featuring strawberry, lemon, half and half, and peach.
I love peach flavor. It's one thing I've never found to be good is peach flavored, like, hard teas or malt beverages.
Well, coming up in 9 days from now,
We'll find out.
we will get Jordan's review.
Like, a lot of peach things I like. If they can make that good, I'll be impressed.
I like peaches.
Thank you, Matt and Manlius. One thing I'm very curious about, and you alluded to it in your opening segment, assuming Collins does come to SU, and again, like, I wait for the person to post it themselves.
He has not done that yet.
Yeah, no. I'll say the name. I'm not afraid. Like, I'm not doubting that Axe knows that it's happening or he's been told. I mean, if we're being realistic, and this is just me speculating, generally stuff like that, like, is it safe to say oftentimes it comes from, like, a parent? I don't know.
A parent.
There's a phone call, and they're going to have to wait through the interview.
It's a short interview. They could potentially get him on before. We're just playing like a 3-minute
But I feel like
thing.
generally that stuff, and again, this isn't me like exposing people's sources or anything. So
Or
I
a
don't think
member
it's
of
like
the
that.
coaching and or recruiting staff. That is.
Yeah,
that
but
thing.
I would also think, I don't think a member of the coaching or recruiting staff for Syracuse would say that if they weren't ready for it to come out. And if they were ready for it to come out, I think our boy Ricky would have had a graphic made.
Yeah.
So it makes me think it's like a parent situation.
Could be an uncle.
Yeah.
Could be a grandfather. Could be Carl Mintz. It's always Carl Mintz.
But so where I was getting before I went on a tangent is this guy who's thrown 7 career passes and has as many rushing yards as passing yards in his
7 career completions.
Yes. Are we sure he's coming in to be the starter?
No. I'd say
It sounds dumb, but are we sure?
like probably.
Because
But
Fran said he
like-
wanted a guy who would come in, compete, and be a leader. So maybe it's like, hey.
Like last year, I was certain what had occurred.
Yeah.
I'd say if he is the only quarterback that comes to Syracuse out of the portal, I think there is a legitimate competition. Now, based on his, recruiting history, time in college, whatever, I'd probably make him the favorite.
Yeah. But also, like, if you're Jakari Williams, right, you'd probably be pissed if they brought in a guy with the same amount of experience as you to take your job, but they kept you on the roster, which leads you to believe that you think you have a chance to start.
Right.
So, like, that's a very, assuming he comes to Syracuse.
It's Perry Patterson's grandma. That is an elite 20-year-old reference, San Diego Cuse.
I'm very interested to see how it goes. Or is it a thing where it's like, hey, you're talented besides throwing. Even if you're not the starter, we'll have ways to work you in. Like I'm very interested. And also, doesn't mean Fran's done in the portal. Maybe that's why it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah,
Maybe this was part of a plan.
Fran is out there in that portal, man.
No.
Have you seen Fran? No, because he's in the portal. Catch him at the dart party tonight. Club Dart!
Right? Can you... How funny would it be if that came out and then tonight at the dart party, the big, like, not rumor, but, like, funny thing, haha, is that McCord announces a 5th year at the dart party.
And they're like, we really need to pay for all of these things. Please give generously.
Exciting times, man. Exciting times.
A kicker? Yeah, I wouldn't argue with a kicker, Hudson Cuse.
It's the 315 with Brian Higgins. Halfway home, we drive into the second hour with Burdick BMW.
Oh, hour 2. It's just like hour 1, but later. Welcome in. We've been talking portal, Washington State, Syracuse future quarterback situation. The ACC stinks at basketball. We've had it all covered over the last 60 minutes and change. Coming up in hour 2, we're about 10 minutes out from chatting with Don Williams, he of the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. You might say, why are you talking to someone from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal? And I would say that is a reasonable question. We don't often talk to people from Lubbock. Syracuse played Texas Tech in basketball within the last 2 weeks. And even then, I talked to nobody from Lubbock. And yet here we are. But Texas Tech and their AD Kirby Holcutt put out earlier this week, like the breakdown of how they're going to handle this revenue sharing thing that's happening this summer. They're the first school I've seen say this stuff out loud. I thought it was fascinating. We'll get Don on here in about 10 minutes. But what I would like to do right now, Oh, this is a little morsel. So I talked earlier today to Alex Brink. Alex Brink is the former quarterback and color analyst for the Washington State football broadcast on the radio. As you may be aware, Syracuse is playing Washington State in the Holiday Bowl 9 days from now. As you may also have become aware this morning, as you could not have been aware before this morning, because none of this has happened yet, their head coach, Jake Dickert, is not their head coach anymore. Now he's Wake Forest head coach. As we talked about earlier, their starting quarterback, John Mateer, is not their quarterback anymore. He's in the portal along with 21 of his teammates. So a little snippet of my conversation with Alex. You'll get the full thing tomorrow in our bowl preview special for the Holiday Bowl. Just what's he feeling? What's the vibe? What is going on in Pullman, Washington right now?
Oh, shock and awe. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I guess I'm probably less surprised maybe on the John Mateer front. Look, he's probably the most highly sought after player in the transfer portal, going to get north of $3 million, if not more, to go to a big time college football program. Hard to knock a young man for taking that opportunity. And, that being said, Washington State put forth a really good effort and a really good, I think, package in their own right. So, kudos to all the people involved in that. But that's just the nature of college football. When it comes to Jake Dickert, obviously that's much more of a surprise. I think partially because very late in the cycle, there hasn't been that many job openings. And Jake Dickert said some things publicly that, made you feel like he was going to be at Washington State, at least in the medium term, for sure. But as we all know, things change. And I think, with Dave Clawson retiring suddenly at Wake Forest, a couple days ago, and then, I think that the calculus changed, frankly. And I think for Jake Dickert, and this is, probably a little pull behind the curtain for everybody there with the Syracuse folks thinking about the game is, Washington State's a really difficult job, and it's been through a lot the last couple of years with the conference realignment and the dissolution of the Pac-12 and, the recreation of the Pac-12, all those sort of things. Well, Jake Dickert and the staff have had to bear the brunt of a lot of that. And I think this move to me appears to be an opportunity to take a little bit of a breather. I mean, we all know Wake Forest is also a tough job, but probably better funded. It's in a P4 conference, probably a pay raise for Coach Dickert. So in that scheme of things, you can kind of understand it, but a real difficult day, I think, for Cougs everywhere.
I mean, out here in ACC country, as we're more than a decade in out here, Alex. We're still getting used to saying ACC country here in Syracuse. We keep hearing that, the SEC and the Big Ten is going to swallow up the ACC, but you can tell it's a whole system here of, down below that here is unfortunately Washington State. And man, what are we, 15, 16 months from when that all imploded last year? Take us through that. That had to have been just awful. Has to still be awful, right, going through everything that Washington State's gone through here in the less than the last 2 years.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, look, I'm from Eugene, Oregon, home of the Oregon Ducks. I mean, I'm a West Coast football purist, through and through. Pac-10, Pac-12. And that's what I grew up on, right? And I feel very strongly about, the product that is West Coast college football. And I think, look, all you got to do is look at the CFP and the top 25 this year to see Oregon, a former Pac-12 school, at number one, Arizona State, a former Pac-12 school, with a first-round bye. You think about some of the success in recent history of, University of Washington last year and so on and so forth, right? I think Pac-12 is a proud conference that has a lot of history, and it was really sad to see the things happen to it. And then ultimately Washington State and Oregon State, who frankly got left behind. And I think that has led us to, all the things that we've seen happen over the last few months. And, really what it ends up being, right, is the inability for these schools to self-fund and to be able to provide the resources needed for, coaches like Jake Dickert and players like John Mateer.
And that was a little bit from my conversation with Alex Brink yesterday, the color analyst for Washington State, still scheduled to play Syracuse in the Holiday Bowl 9 days from now out in fabulous San Diego. Next Friday night at 8 o'clock, we'll be live here on Q Sports Talk with our pregame coverage, a Q Sports Talk exclusive pregame show next Friday starting at 6 o'clock. And, of course, we'll have full postgame coverage for you as well from all the happenings out on the West Coast. What we will have tomorrow on these airwaves at 2 o'clock on Q Sports Talk exclusively is a Holiday Bowl preview show. We'll get my full conversation with Alex. We will have on the executive director, not just a regular director, the executive director of the Holiday Bowl. He goes by the name of Mark Neville. He's also the CEO of San Diego Sports. That sounds like a great title. What are you? I'm the CEO of San Diego Sports. Which ones? All of them? All of them. Oh, yes, and by the by, we will have the quarterback that we actually know is playing in the game. Kyle McCord will be on the show, and a quarterback that has played in bowl games in years gone by, Don McPherson, will join us as well. All that from 2 to 3 tomorrow. Our Holiday Bowl preview show right here on Q's Sports Talk and QSportsTalk.com. With that right now, we will step aside for a few. When we come back, we're going to bring on Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. Texas Tech is the first school that I have seen that has kind of laid it out rather specifically how they're going to handle this $20.5 million expected revenue share situation that is coming to college athletics, presumably starting July 1 of 2025. It has not been approved yet by the court system, but that is basically everybody in college sports' assumption that this thing will be starting for next year. We'll talk to Don what he learned about the first school to really speak publicly with specifics about that. We'll do that next year on Q Sports Talk at ESPN Radio.
Today.
I agree with that, San Diego Q's. You just hope they have enough players to do it. Though, man, we saw, I mean, it was a different situation, but we saw what happened last year in the Boca Bowl when, Syracuse was not mentally locked in on that. That turned into a bleep show. Yeah, they did. It's hilarious, CJC. Is there any fan base in the country that really couldn't care at all about Green Bay or anything that it finds it more hilarious that Gottlieb is being a terrible head coach right now through Syracuse's? Maybe not. I hate to rule out anything interesting and exciting. Yeah, it's great. We just revel in Gottlieb's failures. Beautiful. Have they been high, San Diego Q's? I guess it is a smallish stadium, right? All things considered. Yeah. Don't cry for me, Doug Gottlieb. I wonder if Lipton Our Hard Iced Tea will be at CNY's largest brewfest. Now, because it is now featuring hard cider and seltzer row. Yes, that is what we heard from the Lee Baldwin crew earlier today, Gavendo. Just cranked in the face. $400. My goodness. Those are full cans, Kev. Ah, that makes sense. My understanding, CBW is the university's discretion of how they would like to disperse the money. Well, they're still waiting on court rulings on it, and would there be any Title IX aspect, and yada, 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 yada. Texas Tech giving most of the money to football and men's basketball. Schefter got him good.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Oh, the weather outside is frightful.
It's actually not bad outside right now. Just don't look at the 10-day. It's getting a little funky in a few days. Make sure you got your coat on Friday and Saturday this upcoming week as we roll along here on this Wednesday, a week out from Christmas, 9 days out from the Holiday Bowl. We got hoops coming up on the next couple of Saturdays and on New Year's Eve afternoon to wrap up the year. But right now, let's go back to the phone lines. And we're going to bring on Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal, which normally, Don, wouldn't make a whole ton of sense up here in Syracuse. But I found it fascinating that Texas Tech AD Kirby Holcutt kind of laid out the whole revenue-sharing plan for the Raiders earlier this week. What did you make of that he laid it out as plainly as he did, seemingly this far in advance?
Well, they're usually pretty open about financial stuff and that sort of thing. So I'd actually done a story back in August about kind of their preliminary thoughts, and of course that was before they, obviously the House versus NCAA, there was a lot of activity on that in the summer, and so it's something that athletic departments were kind of hit with and had this fall, I guess you would say, kind of this football season to mull over, okay, how are we going to implement this at our particular school? And so, back in August, they had ideas, not a ton of answers, but then sat down last week with Kirby Holcutt, the Texas Tech athletic director, and he specified pretty much how they plan to go about it in terms of, the projection is that each school will be allowed to share revenue up to $20.5 million with its athletes across their department. Now, the federal judge has given preliminary approval to the House proposed House settlement back in August. Now she's scheduled to give final approval on April 7th, and then these 6 months in between are for all the athletes who are affected by this to be notified, and then for anybody and then to file objections. And so it's not a certainty that this is going to be implemented, but I think if you talk to 133 ADs across the country, they're at work on this, and I think probably everybody is expecting that this is what's going to be in effect starting July the 1st, and then you'll have, football rosters will be capped at 105, and you'll have revenue sharing of up to $20.5 million per year to share with athletes. That's for your full athletic department. And so Kirby Holcutt kind of laid out Texas Tech's plan. And I guess kind of one of the main takeaways, and this isn't really a surprise because I think you're going to find this at most of the schools across the country, at least most of those in the Power Conference. They plan to share about 74 to 75% of that with football players, and about 17 to 18% of that with men's basketball players, and about 2% apiece to their women's basketball program and to their baseball team, which Texas Tech baseball team has made the College World Series 4 times in the past 10 years. So it's a very popular sport here. And that leaves, so that their breakdown would be about only about $400,000 apiece, and that leaves smaller amounts, less than $500,000 total for the rest of the sports to share.
I think that was one of the interesting things. You add those two numbers together, it's more than 90% for football and men's basketball. The one thing I wonder if this is going to come up in the courts, like, is there any Title IX implications that Kirby's pondering about here, or is that baked into like the amount of revenue bought in by those sports where that wouldn't be an issue they have to deal with?
I think that's something he's very cognizant of. In fact, he kind of brought it up when we were talking about it back in August, back in the summer. It's like we can't automatically add, in this case he was talking about scholarships. He said we can't think we can add men's scholarships and not do something equivalent in terms of the women. Mm-hmm. Now, that's the thing about Title IX is no one seems to really know how it applies, and and I'm no attorney here, and my knowledge of law is very limited, but it seems like there hasn't been really like the federal judge or courts. No one has really said how Title IX applies, or if it does, to revenue sharing. Now, Kirby Hoka said his personal opinion, he's very aware that, yes, Title IX would apply to scholarships, but his personal opinion, he said, I don't think Title IX really applies to revenue sharing. But when I asked him about that again, just the other day, he said, I really haven't learned anything new about that. But he said, I think what we are doing, the percentage breakdowns that we're giving to men, really to football, 75% versus everything else. And so football and men's basketball are getting more than 90% in Texas tax plan. He said, I think what we're doing pretty much mirror. You'll find that most of the Power 4 schools are going to break it down in, similar amounts. And he said, I know that for sure with the, Big 12, other Big 12 ADs that I've talked to.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's kind of a strength in number. If we're going to get sued, everybody's going to get sued.
Yeah, all going in together. I mean, we had John Wildhack, Syracuse's AD, on a few weeks ago, and private school, they don't have to divulge the numbers, but he says they plan on being competitive, and all these ADs talk to each other about this stuff. They don't fly into these situations blind. That's for sure. I'd say one of the main interesting takeaways I got from your article, and this I've been wondering here the whole time, and Kirby told this to you, is that, and I guess part of this is the Title IX implication, that for football they have no plans of increasing from 85 scholarships. Now, you'd be technically allowed, right, to go up to 105 scholarships now with the roster limits. How did they come about that? And the other thing I took away, I did not realize this, that you'd actually have to subtract some money from the revenue share if you were to add more scholarships, which I found. I had no idea that was a part of this thing.
Yeah, and so quite a bit to unpack there. Okay, so you can now, according to, again, if the House versus NCAA settlement receives final approval, you will be able to put every athlete on every roster on scholarship if you wanted to. And there are a couple of assumptions made, I think, last summer in a lot of the reporting on this, and including reporters who are very good and who I totally respect and gained a lot by reading their stuff. But I think there was an assumption made, and probably rightly so, that if you can have 105 football players on scholarship, well, of course the Power 4 schools are going to put 105 football players on scholarship, and it's going to be on full scholarship. Mm-hmm. But if you read the House settlement, read that document, which is over 100 pages long, all scholarships are now what's called equivalency scholarships versus what we know as head count scholarships. Head count scholarships, like football players, to this point, all football players receive a full scholarship, and then like what the so-called non-revenue sports have, receive partial scholarships. Like the baseball team, for example, the scholarship limit is 11.7, where you can spread those 11.7 over, I think, 27 baseball players. Well, now all the scholarships are going to be equivalencies. So you could have 85 football players on scholarship, theoretically, break up a little bit of those, say guys 80 to 85 and give part of theirs to guys who are 86 through 105 on your roster. But here's, the other thing, though, that we've learned is that, okay, so if you're committed to spend $20.5 million in revenue sharing, and Texas Tech is, any new spending on scholarships up to $2.5 million has to be deducted or comes off of that $20.5 million. So in other words, if you want to fund an additional 20 scholarships, then you got $2.5 million in scholarships. Well, then you only have $18 million more, and then you only have $18 million in revenue sharing.
Yeah.
And so the logic here seems to be that we want to give our coaches maximum flexibility. The revenue sharing seems to be priority number one. That they're going to commit the full amount, $20.5 million to that, and do nothing that would reduce that $20.5 million. And so Texas Tech is not increasing scholarships in football or in any other sport across the board. And I was kind of surprised it didn't seem to get a whole lot of attention, but the SEC, the almighty SEC, in November came out and said our schools are staying at 85 scholarships for 2025. If anybody's going to take advantage of new rules, everybody assumed that, of course, the SEC is going to have 105 football players on scholarship. But I guess as the ADs have kind of sat down and think about this more and saw that, okay, if we spend more on scholarships, then we're going to be able to spend less on an actual payroll, so to speak.
Yeah,
and they prefer
more people too, right, Donnie? It's not only less total; you're getting less per person, so it would be like an even worse trickle down. It feels like if you were dividing a smaller pool among more players.
Yeah, and so I guess the logic there is, okay, I'm recruiting a football player. I will give him enough in revenue sharing that he can cover his schooling, but maybe he would rather have the money. Maybe he'd rather have the money in the bank, right, to have his own discretion on how he uses that money. Maybe use some of it for school, maybe use some of it to get rid of the old clunker car that he's having to drive and trade up. So. Yeah, it's been kind of interesting to watch this unfold. Like I say, there are a lot of assumptions made, and I include myself in that. There are a lot of assumptions made about how this is going to work, and now it looks like, well, maybe it's not going to work exactly how we first assumed and thought.
Yeah, this has got my mind churning here because you talked about baseball down at Texas Tech. The equivalent here in Syracuse would be the lacrosse programs with an
exactly.
So the way the lacrosse programs have always gone about their scholarships is. They had what lacrosse, I think 11.6 or whatever it is right now. They'd have you'd figure out how many guys you could get need-based or academic-based money, and then you'd try to make as many guys whole as you possibly could. I wonder now in football, all right, can you fill a 105 roster? I bet you can. A 105 roster with only 85 scholarships and none of the guys paying money. Like I bet you might also be able to pull that off, which is going to be a trick some of these schools are going for. And if you're a state school, it's certainly a lot easier to pull off than if you got a private school tuition you're dealing with at some places.
Yeah, how many players does the lacrosse roster normally have at Syracuse?
Well, I mean, it's been I forget what they capped the limit at because obviously football's now. I think they're capping lacrosse at like 40 something. They've been. I mean, some years they've been north of 60 or north of 50, so they got to trim it down. But yeah, they try to spread it out as much as they can, so as many guys as they can get something.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to ask the lacrosse coach if he's going to get an increased amount of athletic scholarships to work with. This is a separate conversation, but I really like lacrosse personally, and I don't know exactly the reasons why. I know it's obviously very popular and big, kind of over there on the eastern seaboard. I've wondered why it's never really seemed to spread across the country as exciting a sport as it is.
I'd say we've had some players from we've had some players from the Dallas area. I know it's grown. It's become, I think, a lot of Texas high school players, instead of playing spring football, they go play lacrosse instead, so they don't have to practice football as much.
It's not. I don't think it's sponsored by like the State High School Association here, but I think there's a lot of club sport type of lacrosse teams in Texas.
Yeah,
I believe.
Brandon Mullins was a Dallas area guy about a decade ago. He was whatever level he was at. He was the state player of the year in football in Texas. Ended up at Syracuse playing lacrosse. So that was kind of a different thing. Man, Don, it's fascinating though, isn't it? This is all stuff we never thought we'd be talking about covering sports 5 years ago. It's like this is all just a foreign world. What's next for you in this realm? I mean, obviously you're still covering the games. What's the next thing you think you're looking out for in this wild, crazy world of stuff changing every other day?
Well, I tell you, the thing we're looking out for here locally is Texas Tech's been extremely active in the transfer portal, and just before I got on with you, they've added 3 more commitments from this afternoon. A defensive tackle from Houston, a cornerback from Purdue, and a offensive tackle from North Carolina all have committed to Texas Tech. And Tech now has 14 guys from the transfer portal. And here's another element of this that we're just talking about. Okay, if the roster is capped at 105, my current projection is they are, when you talk about their high school signees in December and their 14 transfer guys, and the guys who are on the team that have eligibility left, they're about 15 or 16 players, projected to be about 15 or 16 players over that limit of 105. And so it's going to be interesting to see how many of the players who are kind of walk-ons who haven't played much, how many of the Tex guys are going to put their names in the portal during this cycle, and how many are going to say be on the bubble and say, you know what, I'm going to go through spring practice and see if I can keep my spot, make this 105-man roster, and and then the portal opens again April 16th through the 25th. Because Joey McGuire said, okay, we're going to be very aggressive. He's basically going to get all the upgrades, so to speak, I believe, that he can pretty much get his hands on, and then they'll sort it out when they get to the spring. And he's been pretty, bluntly said, I'm going to have to cut guys. And that's, again, kind of this the new world that we're living in.
Yeah.
As it becomes more and more, a professional type sport.
That's what happens when you get in the paycheck. Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, where you have players being paid, and basically, you have college football free agency now, and spring, it's kind of like the OTAs, and then another period of free agency before you get to summer.
Yeah, it is. It never ends, and it is fascinating stuff. All right, Don, really appreciate the time today. Always fascinating to dive into this stuff, and thanks so much for hopping on.
Same here. I appreciate the invite, Brian.
All right, there he is, Don Williams. So we're just chatting with people in Lubbock. This is what the college football. This is what all this stuff is doing. We're going far and wide and talking with people. So yeah, Don's article, I think we all thought we maybe had some grasp on what this was. A couple of those nuggets in there that I read that on Monday or Tuesday. I'm like, wait a minute. If you increase the scholarships, you got to partially pay for it out of the revenue share? Ooh, that's a spicy little meatball. I didn't realize that football was going to equivalency either. So it used to be a football or a basketball scholarship was one. Like other sports would divide them up. You get a half scholarship, you get a third, here's some need-based aid, whatever. I bet now, I bet with 85 scholarships, if you're Fran Brown, if you're Syracuse, if you can't turn 85 scholarships through some need-based aid and some this and some that into 105 scholarships, come on. You can do that. You can do that. Now I'm starting to understand what the deal is here. You can turn 85 into 105. There'll be walk-ons, or there could be people you might have a half scholarship in football. That's never been a thing before. You might be half a walk-on. But if you can't figure out the paperwork to turn 85 into 105, Yeah, you might need to find some. You might need to find another realm of employment if you can't turn the 85 into 105. Come on, that's some math we can all enjoy. All right, we'll take a break. We'll get Mike in here. We'll do a little 411. We'll do that next. It's Q Sports Talk. It is ESPN Radio. I don't know what they're doing, Jen. They have not said out loud. The only thing John Wildhack has really said is that Syracuse plans on being competitive when it comes to all this stuff. No, that was great. For a completely random person of a random article I read for no good reason, that was great. And a little Texas accent to it. What's not to like? I'm getting 1 million of it, Kev. That's what I've heard. Yeah, you can squish competitive whichever way you like, LA Orange. All I know is, to Jen's point, I know Gary Gate likes to squish things, and he likes to squish them as much as they can be squished to fill it up. Like, he'll juice something for all it's worth. So, like, I have seen Gary Gate maneuver in these situations before, and he ain't going to get shortchanged on anybody's account. Hey, look, it's Mike. Yeah, there goes Mike. It's not Mike. False start. Yeah, competitive. Squishy is a good way to phrase that, LA Orange. It is a very squishy term. Hey, look, it's Mike. You climbing Everest?
Man's not hot, but man's is often very cold.
How thin was your shirt?
Not very.
Yeah, that's why I'm confused. Like, I mean, it's not warm in here right now, but you know.
You got a sweater on, man.
I know. That's why I asked how thin your shirt was.
This is supposed to be a safe space, Brian.
Well, that's why I'm confused.
I feel emotionally attacked.
We're both wearing a long sleeve shirt.
I need a personal day.
I wasn't emotionally attacking you. I'm questioning the thickness of your fabric. If it's a very thin shirt, I could understand.
It's not. It's actually pretty thick.
That's why I was confused. I wasn't looking at it and saying, oh, that's a flimsy shirt Mike has on. He looks chilly. I'm not saying I'm warm in here, but I've been much colder in this room before. That's why I'm confused. I don't feel this is an abnormally cold day for this room.
I don't want to change the subject, but I do want to give, pardon the interruption, kudos for not changing their rundown on the side like SportsCenter did. Because, like, every time I see SportsCenter-related content, it's always like, well, I wish the old days when you had the ticker on the side.
Like, the only thing that has ever changed about PTI is that it went HD.
That is very true. It has been the same exact thing since I was, like, 6.
I'm turning into Paul Jr.?
Oh, because you're emotionally berating me just now? Does that mean I
wasn't emotionally berating you. I was regular berating you.
If we had to pick roles, I think I was definitely more the Paulie and you were more the Steve. Because you were asking a genuine question and then I just totally turned it on you.
Because you walked in. It's not like if you had a T-shirt on, I would have understood. But you have a long sleeve shirt on.
Yeah, I just gaslit the heck out of that question.
Yeah, like, it was an honest question, but no, now I will emotionally berate you. I haven't watched PTI in forever. I used to watch that.
I haven't either.
I mean, part of it, it's on while I'm on the air, but...
I remember when I was a kid, my dad would watch SportsCenter every morning, and I was probably like 4 or 5, and I did not care about sports at the time.
Oh, man. It's amazing back in, like, the old school days when SportsCenter in the morning was literally the same show on repeat.
Oh, yeah, every hour.
Huh, why did I watch it 3 times? It hasn't changed.
It was funny, too, because he'd be watching it every day. I'd be like, I hate this. Like, can we watch something else? And he looks at me with, like, his whole heart and goes, eventually you'll love it, buddy. And then he was right. I watched SportsCenter every morning, unless it was snowing.
They gave Pavia another year of eligibility for that junior college crap? That's insane. Who knows? That's the one thing I'd say with the McCord thing. Like, the NCAA often makes rulings based on nothing that makes sense whatsoever. There is no good reason, based on the current rules of eligibility, that McCord should get another year. Other than, like, Ryan Day, like, just shouldn't have played in the 5th game and, like, dude, learn to count. Like, hey, maybe have another backup quarterback available when your backup gets a DUI. Like, what the heck? Not McCord, the other guy that was supposed to play. But I don't know if that's a reason to get a year of eligibility.
All across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
Here we are. Rolling along here on this lovely November Wednesday. It's still Wednesday. I've forgotten what day it is multiple times during the show.
I have today as well.
Yeah. Mike is wearing a very thick coat. He's chilly.
I feel like an OG right now.
Because of the coat?
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like I got swag.
Okay.
Like, I don't have to say much because the coat does the talking.
I would recommend some talking, though, due to the... This is a radio program.
But if not, go to qsportstalk.com.
Yeah, Mike better take it in with his soundless vibe on Q Sports Talk right now. Yes, it's a great advertisement for Q Sports Talk because Mike is going... he's going no words communication today. And this hour brought to you by dvoffers.com, powered by Drivers Village, which still is in Cicero. Oh, hit the wrong button. There we go.
Here's the 411.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
In the 315.
So you're going to be doing that all week, right?
Nah.
Well, Mike's cold, but now he's warmer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we got that taken care of, which is nice.
Great.
Yeah. You literally came in the room. You were in the room for like I wouldn't even say you were a half step in the room. You were a quarter of a step in the room. And you're like, I'll be right back. I wonder what he forgot. And he came back in his full winter coat.
It was like when the Office episode when Toby walks in and Michael goes, "Oh, close the door on your way out, Toby." And Toby just turns around and leaves.
Yeah. I'm like, what is going on? You came back literally in a full-on winter coat. All right, what do we got?
Well, yesterday it was today, during team practice, head coach of the Boston Celtics, Joe Mazzulla, was asked about the NBA ratings discussion that's been kind of taking over the league right now. And
they'd prefer more ratings.
He said that he doesn't watch NBA basketball, so he's a part of the problem.
Joe Mazzulla is turning into, like, low-key the craziest answerer of questions in the league. He's saying some weird stuff recently.
Is that concerning as like a fan or a player?
That he doesn't watch NBA basketball, so he is the problem? Well, I'm sure he watches, like, I will believe him that's technically true, that he's not sitting down and watching like, hey, let's put on the TNT Thursday night doubleheader. Probably because at the time he's probably watching NBA basketball and like grinding on tape. Which
you think it's all film?
Well, I'm assuming it would be kind of weird if he was doing neither. But I'll benefit of the doubt him and say, all right, he's not just sitting down and watching games live, that he's, grinding on that film, just really grinding that tape. Yeah, I don't know. He's also the coach in the NBA that we've grown to learn about, Joe Mazzulla, that would answer the question that way.
He's more of an archive guy, not live, which is great because a lot of our viewers are too. If you go to our YouTube channel, we post all of our interviews.
Yeah, we don't need to... we're in a timeless society now, and I don't mean that like ageless and historic. I mean, you can do stuff whenever you feel like it.
I just thought it was kind of concerning because I understand that a head coach is more viable to watch film opposed to live games. But it also is very surprising that a head coach doesn't have the desire to watch more basketball.
Yeah, that's the one I wonder. Is he literally just grinding on film? Like what? All right, so say the Celtics are off on Thursday night, and the TNT doubleheader is on. And it's like the second game of the doubleheader, and the Celtics are on the road. They got a game the next night. Like, what's he doing? Like, got back from dinner. What's he doing? Are you grinding tape? Are you meeting with the coaches? Or are you like, or is he like, I need to unwind with a movie? Or is he just like, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep?
Maybe he's just cranking 90s on Fortnite.
Could be.
I mean, maybe,
Those NBA guys often travel with...
that is true.
With video game sets.
We're in a new day and age, Brian. It's no longer nerdy to be a video game player.
No, like the NBA guys literally are like, their carry-on on the plane is their whole setup.
I get it, though. Video games are all about competition. I'm not surprised that the best competitors in the world have an interest in it.
Here, I'm going to do this, Mike. This is going to be something that maybe, or probably not, or possibly, or maybe not at all will affect Syracuse. Breaking news into Portal Watch headquarters. Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia, who I thought was just Looney Tunes when he was suing to get more eligibility because he was arguing his JUCO years, not where he was in school, he played. His JUCO years when he played shouldn't count as his eligibility. I'm like, what? You were in a college playing football. The reason you were there, you weren't good enough for the other places. Of course that counts as your eligibility. Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia will be allowed to play in 2025 for now. Pavia's motion for a preliminary injunction has been granted in the U.S. District Court of Middle Tennessee, arguing that the governing body's redshirt rule involving junior college eligibility violates antitrust law. Wednesday's ruling from Judge William Campbell will allow Vanderbilt's star quarterback to return for another season. The NCAA will be able to challenge Pavia's preliminary injunction, but for now, he will be able to play next season. No word on if that covers head coaches for playing their backup quarterback in a fifth game of the season when they lost the ability to count. What is going on? Unlimited eligibility. Have at it.
Wait, so you're telling me
that
if you play JUCO for 2 years, you're good. But if you play 5 games at a Power 5 conference, you're done.
That's what I'm telling you as far as today.
I don't
know what I'll be telling you tomorrow. Oh, man.
I don't get
like,
it, man.
how? What are we doing? What are we doing? Like, something has to count for something. Doesn't it? No?
The NCAA is the most interesting organization I've ever seen.
I would love to see, because the NCAA could fight back against this. Will they care to, or will they just be like, yeah, we always lose. Screw it.
Well, I mean, this could be quite the snowball effect. I mean,
I know we've been living in the land of these Kyle McCord rumors that we've been dancing around. I don't think Kyle's going to be back. I'll put it this way. We'll have Kyle on the show tomorrow. We'll ask him tastefully. I'm sure he's not going to give us an answer that's going to give you hope he's going to be back here next season, and then we'll move on and talk about other things, and that will be fine. But I don't think regardless. I think even if Kyle knew he had eligibility next year, I think he'd still go in the draft. That's just my personal assumption from having dealt with him as we have all year. That said, are you telling me if Kyle felt like just randomly lobbing a lawsuit out there, that he'd be granted an injunction to be like, I'm back?
It seems like it.
Right. Sue! Everyone sue!
This could be incredibly murky, though, because so much it could come from this. So many of the transfers, obviously with the transfer portal introduction, it's been a little bit different, but so many players are transferring from JUCO schools already. There's you potentially just created a scenario where you can get hundreds of lawsuits a year now.
Well, in theory, you wouldn't actually have to sue anymore because you know the answer to it.
That's fair.
I've come up with another idea. As long as we're getting kookier and kookier. You know who should have some eligibility left for next year in college basketball?
Who's that?
Carmelo Anthony. I think he should come and play with his son.
This could...
Why not?
This could be.
I only played the 1 year, guys.
This could be a really tough situation for Syracuse football as well, because if this doesn't go through, and I don't know anything, but if Kyle is trying to get another year and it doesn't go through, so many transfer quarterbacks are taking Syracuse off their list because they're like, I don't even know if I'm going to be playing. I don't know if Kyle's going to be there. And if Kyle's going to be there, he's going to start. I mean, he was a top quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
Huh.
But, I'm going to start the rumor now that Carmelo wants to play with his son, just like LeBron. He'll be attending Syracuse University next year.
I'll play.
Yeah. Carmelo did not mention you.
My dad met him one time.
Okay. How'd that go? Was he wearing a shirt?
He seemed nice.
Melo disdained shirts. Yeah.
Yeah. Big fan of hoodies, though.
Hoodies? Yeah, likes a hoodie. Now he wears a lot of hats.
Do you ever not wear a shirt and just wear a hoodie? I do sometimes.
What do you mean? With not an undershirt under it?
Yeah. It's like around the house, toss on a hoodie.
Yeah, I'd say sometimes.
It's a little cold, not too hot.
Yeah.
This time of year is tough.
Today you might have needed a hoodie.
I needed a hoodie today.
Because now you're wearing a full winter jacket inside. Your layering has been an issue all day long. Though based on this, just a hoodie might not have been enough. All right,
hoodie.
Another scintillating edition of the 411 where we've solved nothing and added another 9,000 questions about both jackets and college eligibility to our list. With that, we'll step aside. What's on tap? What isn't on tap tonight? We got lots of stuff going on. We'll tell you about it next year on Q Sports Talk at ESPN Radio.
Bum, 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 bum.
So what do we got? You're doing women's soups from there?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm about 75% sure I know how to set it up right.
Yeah, we'll hit some, and then the crunch will be from here, but on the AM, we're going to hit some buttons here in a little bit.
Tim also didn't know that we were doing women's basketball in the Proud Room today.
Somebody may or may not have forgot to put it on the schedule.
Yeah, I was told.
Probably forgot to put it.
Yeah, he told me. He goes, I messed up. I know, big surprise.
Yeah. What's funny is he had a promo running about the game, though, so he remembered some of it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. No, Paulie found it interesting. He's like, what did I do? I clearly knew the game was happening.
Oh, man. Jordan's such a nice guy, though. He texted me about it to ask if I could, and then he, like, blamed himself for it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Jordan, what a gem.
The good news is you were already coming in a little later today, so it's not giving you a stupid long day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the women are playing at Binghamton. Of the games to forget that do exist, Ryan, it would be this one. Rhodey at Bingo. Oh, man. Yeah, we're all going to sue to get Kyle back. And then Kyle's like, guys.
I appreciate it, but...
Thank you. I appreciate it, but like I would like to be in the National Football League.
If you're Kyle McCord, say you do get another year, do you declare?
We've talked to him about it. I don't want to say he's been vague. Like, a part of his answer the last time we talked about it, he's like, was basically like, I'm glad I'm about to be done with class. Like, that would change. I think there's part of him that would like to come back and be and like do this again next year, but I also like,
because I mean, if he was to play again next year, the beginning of this season has such a different outlook from outside people. Like,
oh my God!
Now
if Kyle McCord, if we knew today that Kyle McCord was the quarterback next year, this would be the most anticipated offseason in the history of Syracuse football. Period. Full stop.
You know what for the pod?
I think we're looking at like a 1-2-5. We can put the short part of that interview in the.
Not a big fan of this.
The pod of what?
Certain ex-NFL player getting a head coaching job.
Oh, the Vic thing?
Yeah. You said 1-2-5?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna leave.
All right.
Unless you want to catch it now real quick.
You got to take your coat out on the way out the door?
Yeah, probably.
What's your coat plan here going forward? What's the temperature like in the
much colder?
Yeah, what's the temperature like in the prod room? Is it just this room because of the window, or do you need the coat in the production room for the?
I surely hope not.
Yeah, because that's not a window room.
It's a windowless room.
It is a windowless room.
Guess we'll cross that bridge when it comes.
All right.
All right, bye.
Okay, we've solved many things. Yeah, Kevin's coming back. Carmelo's coming back. McCord's coming back. Everyone's coming back. ESPNU, I've said this repeatedly, they need to bring up the tagline they got rid of at the wrong time, which they had for a decade, which was never graduate. Yeah, like, I don't foresee it happening, Hudson Cuse. I'd say the chance is more than zero, but I just... LeQuint, I've not heard anything. I mean, he just has another year. I mean, he's only played 3 years. He's got another... Yeah, Melo coming back 21 years later to play college with his son would be amazing. Be like, yeah, I played an entire NBA career. What of it? What are you gonna do? Stop me? Could you imagine? Be electric. Oh, man. Ugh.
Across CNY, it's the 315. Here's Brian Higgins.
All right, let's see if I have this all situated correctly.
Here's what's on tap tonight.
What isn't on tap tonight? All right, so women's basketball at Binghamton tonight, 7 o'clock. That's going to be on our ESPN FM signal, 97.7. Yes, that is pregame with Tim Leonard from Bingo at 6:45. The Crunch and the Monsters are at 7 o'clock tonight. That'll be on ESPN 1200. That's the AM signal. Countdown to Crunch Time with Lucas Favalli at 6:45. Also at 7 o'clock. See if you can listen to all three. This would be an impressive feat if you can pull it off. The Red Autry Show over on TK99 will be at 7 o'clock. Women's basketball is a 7:30 tip, so I'm told. It's not. What are you doing, Binghamton? Why is the game even there? 7:30? Tim will be on at 7:15. Wow, I don't even know what's going on. There's a lot of stuff on a lot of places. Figure it out and listen to it. There's Hoops and Crunch and Red. They're all on our channels. You guys deal with it. That's what's on tap. What's on tap on the show tomorrow? We plan to be joined for the first time this year, brought to you by RomanoCars.com. One JJ Starling. See how the hand is doing. Chris Brown talking Bills. Don't forget, bowl preview show tomorrow, 2 o'clock. QSportsTalk.com. See you then.
The 315 with Brian Higgins.
Fran Brown, though, continues to work on the offense.